Beneath the waves of our world's oceans lie secrets that have remained hidden for thousands of years. Cities that once bustled with life, temples that echoed with prayers, and entire civilizations that vanished beneath the relentless tide of time. For centuries, these underwater ruins were dismissed as myths, legends whispered by sailors and dreamers. But what if I told you that some of the most incredible archaeological discoveries of our time weren't found in dusty tombs or ancient burial grounds, but lying silently on the ocean floor, waiting for someone brave enough to dive down and uncover the truth? Welcome to a world where history meets mystery, where cutting-edge technology reveals ancient secrets, and where every discovery rewrites what we thought we knew about human civilization. Today, we're diving deep into the most remarkable underwater archaeological finds that prove our ancestors built magnificent cities that now rest beneath the waves. From Egyptian ports swallowed by earthquakes to mysterious stone monuments that challenge everything we believe about ancient construction, these submerged ruins hold keys to understanding civilizations that thrived long before recorded history. But here's what makes this story even more incredible. These aren't just random artifacts scattered across the seafloor. These are complete cities, perfectly preserved temples, and ancient harbors frozen in time by the very waters that consumed them. And the technology we're using to explore them today is revealing details so precise, so extraordinary, that they're forcing archaeologists to completely reconsider how advanced our ancestors really were. Before we dive into these amazing discoveries, I need to tell you something that will change how you think about our planet's coastlines forever. Every single one of these underwater cities we're about to explore was once above sea level. These weren't built underwater. They were thriving communities where people lived, worked, and built incredible monuments. Then something happened. Earthquakes shook the ground beneath their feet. Tsunamis crashed over their walls. Sea levels rose and claimed their streets. And in some cases, the earth itself liquefied and swallowed entire cities in a matter of hours. Now, let me take you on a journey to places where the impossible became reality, where legends turned out to be historical fact, and where the ocean itself became the greatest museum humanity has ever known. Our first stop takes us to the Mediterranean Sea, off the coast of Egypt, where one of the most significant archaeological discoveries of the modern era was waiting beneath 30 feet of water. For over 1,000 years, historians debated the location of an ancient city mentioned in classical texts. Greek writers described a magnificent port where ships from across the Mediterranean came to trade. Egyptian records spoke of a sacred city where pharaohs were crowned and gods were worshipped. But this legendary place had completely vanished from the map. Enter Frank Gaudio, a French underwater archaeologist who spent 5 years searching the waters near Alexandria. Using advanced sonar technology and following clues from ancient texts, his team methodically mapped the seafloor. Then, in the year 2000, they made a discovery that sent shockwaves through the archaeological world. Rising from the muddy bottom of the Mediterranean, they found massive stone statues, temple foundations, and the remains of what was once Egypt's most important port city. This was Thonos Herakleion, a city so significant that before Alexandria was built, every ship entering Egypt had to pass through its harbors. But here's where the story gets even more fascinating. For centuries, scholars believed that Thonis and Heracleion were two separate cities. It wasn't until Godio's team discovered a stone stele, an ancient Egyptian monument with hieroglyphic inscriptions, that they realized these were actually two names for the same incredible place. The preservation of Thonis Heracleion is nothing short of miraculous. When you walk through the ruins of ancient cities on land, you typically find foundations, broken pottery, and maybe some weathered statues. But underwater, the conditions are completely different. The lack of oxygen, the protective layer of sediment, and the stable temperature of the deep ocean created a time capsule that preserved this city in stunning detail. Godio's team has recovered over 20,000 artifacts from Thonis Heracleion. Colossal statues of pharaohs and gods stand over 5 meters tall, their faces still clearly defined after more than a millennium underwater. Gold coins shine as brightly as the day they were minted. Perfectly preserved temple walls bear inscriptions that are teaching us new details about ancient Egyptian religious practices. Perhaps most remarkably, archaeologists have found wicker baskets, still containing grape seeds and fruit that were placed as offerings to the gods 2,400 years ago. But what happened to this magnificent city? The answer lies in a geological phenomenon that has claimed coastal cities throughout history. Multiple earthquakes, followed by devastating tsunamis, triggered something called liquefaction. Imagine solid ground suddenly becoming liquid, like quicksand. That's exactly what happened to large sections of the Nile Delta. The very earth beneath Thonis Heracleion turned to liquid, and the entire city sank beneath the waves in what must have been a terrifying and catastrophic event. The implications of this discovery go far beyond archaeology. Thonis Heracleion proves that our ancestors built cities of incredible sophistication, with advanced harbor engineering, monumental architecture, and complex trade networks that connected civilizations across the ancient world. Every artifact pulled from these waters rewrites another chapter of human history. Now let's travel across the globe to India, where another underwater discovery has captured the imagination of archaeologists and historians alike. Off the coast of Gujarat lies the submerged remains of a city that bridges the gap between mythology and history in the most extraordinary way imaginable. Dwarka holds a special place in Hindu tradition as the legendary Golden City built by Lord Krishna. According to ancient texts, this was a magnificent metropolis with beautiful gardens, deep moats, and grand palaces. But here's what makes this story incredible. When the texts described how Dwarka was swallowed by the sea after Krishna's death, most scholars assumed this was pure mythology. Then marine archaeologists decided to investigate. What they found beneath the Arabian Sea changed everything. During underwater excavations in the 1980s and 90s, India's National Institute of Oceanography discovered extensive stone structures, sophisticated city walls, and a massive stone jetty that could have accommodated large ships. The level of urban planning revealed in these underwater ruins matches remarkably well with the descriptions found in ancient Sanskrit texts. The discoveries at Dwarka include triangular stone anchors with 3 holes, evidence of a thriving port that facilitated trade during the period known as India's Middle Kingdoms. The settlement walls, fort bastions, and harbor structures demonstrate engineering capabilities that historians are only beginning to fully appreciate. Carbon dating of artifacts suggests this underwater city flourished around 1500 years before Christ, making it one of the oldest planned urban centers ever discovered. But Dwarka represents more than just archaeological evidence. It demonstrates how oral traditions and religious texts can preserve accurate historical information across thousands of years. The precise match between textual descriptions and underwater archaeological findings suggests that ancient civilizations possessed far more advanced record-keeping and urban planning capabilities than previously believed. Yet perhaps the most ancient underwater settlement discovered to date takes us to an entirely different part of the world and a much earlier period in human history. Off the coast of Israel, beneath the shallow waters near Haifa, lies Atlit Yam, a 9,000-year-old Neolithic village that represents one of humanity's most important transitions. When this settlement was discovered in 1984, archaeologists realized they were looking at something unprecedented. Atlit Yam dates back to around 6,900 years before Christ, making it the oldest known human settlement found underwater anywhere in the world. But age isn't the only thing that makes this site extraordinary. The people who lived at Atlit Yam were among the first humans to make the crucial transition from hunter-gatherer societies to settled agricultural communities. This underwater village provides the earliest known evidence of cattle domestication, organized farming, and permanent settlements on the Levantine coast. In other words, Atlit Yam represents nothing less than the dawn of civilization as we know it. The preservation at this site is absolutely remarkable. Archaeologists have identified over 100 species of plants that grew at the settlement or were gathered from the surrounding wilderness. Animal bones reveal a sophisticated understanding of both wild hunting and domestic animal husbandry. Fish bones numbering in the thousands demonstrate that these early settlers were skilled maritime hunters who understood seasonal fishing patterns. Perhaps most significantly, Atlit Yam has provided medical researchers with extraordinary insights into ancient human health. Skeletons discovered at the site show the earliest known cases of tuberculosis in human history. Additionally, many of the skeletal remains show ear damage, consistent with regular exposure to cold water, confirming that these people spent significant time diving and swimming in the Mediterranean. The site also contains architectural marvels that challenge our understanding of Neolithic capabilities. A stone semicircle containing 7 massive megaliths, each weighing over 600 kilograms, surrounds a freshwater spring. These stones are carved with cup marks and appear to have been arranged for water-related rituals, suggesting that even our earliest settled ancestors possessed sophisticated spiritual and ceremonial practices. The mystery of how Atlet Yam became submerged continues to generate intense scientific debate. Some researchers propose that a volcanic collapse of Mount Etna 8,500 years ago created a massive tsunami that engulfed Mediterranean coastal settlements within hours. Evidence for this theory includes the apparent sudden abandonment of the site, with piles of fish left ready for trade or storage, suggesting residents fled quickly. However, other scientists argue for a more gradual submersion caused by rising sea levels following the last ice age. As glaciers melted and ocean levels rose, coastal settlements like Atlet Yam were slowly but inevitably claimed by advancing waters. The debate between catastrophic and gradual submersion theories reflects broader questions about how climate change and geological events have shaped human civilization throughout history. History, our next destination, brings us to one of the most controversial underwater discoveries ever made, a site that has divided the archaeological community and sparked debates that continue to rage today. Off the coast of Yonaguni Island, Japan's southernmost point, lies a massive underwater structure that challenges everything we think we know about ancient construction capabilities. The Yonaguni Monument was discovered by accident in the 1980s by a diving instructor exploring the waters near Taiwan. What he found defied explanation. Rising from the ocean floor stands a colossal stone formation measuring 100 meters long, 60 meters wide, and 25 meters tall. But these aren't just random rocks scattered by geological forces. The structure features precise terraced steps, perfectly straight edges, and right angles that seem far too geometric to be natural. Marine geologist Masaki Kimura has spent decades studying this underwater enigma, and his conclusions are nothing short of revolutionary. Kimura argues that the Yonaguni Monument represents the remains of an ancient civilization that constructed sophisticated stone architecture thousands of years before conventional history suggests such capabilities existed. His analysis of the formation's angles, proportions, and apparent tool marks has convinced him that human hands shaped these massive blocks. The implications of Kimura's theory are staggering. If the Yonaguni Monument is indeed artificial, it would push back the timeline of advanced human construction by thousands of years. The structure would have been built when the area was above sea level, before rising oceans claimed it sometime between 10,000 and 2,000 years ago. This would mean that ancient peoples possessed engineering skills and organizational capabilities far beyond what mainstream archaeology currently accepts. However, not everyone agrees with Kimura's interpretation. Geologist Robert Schoch, who has extensively studied the site, argues that the Yonaguni Monument is primarily a natural geological formation. Schoch points out that the rocks in this region naturally fracture along horizontal and vertical planes, creating step-like appearances both underwater and on the surface of Yonaguni Island itself. He acknowledges that ancient humans might have modified or utilized these natural formations, but he maintained that the basic structure is geological rather than architectural. This scientific disagreement highlights one of the greatest challenges facing underwater archaeology. Distinguishing between natural processes and human modification becomes incredibly difficult. When dealing with submerged sites that have been subjected to thousands of years of tectonic activity, erosion, and sedimentation. The Yonaguni Monument forces us to confront fundamental questions about how we define archaeological evidence and what constitutes proof of ancient human activity. But regardless of whether Yonaguni is natural or artificial, its discovery has opened our eyes to the vast potential for underwater archaeological sites in regions with complex geological histories. The Pacific Ring of Fire, where Yonaguni is located, has experienced countless earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, and dramatic changes in sea level over the past 10,000 years. If ancient civilizations did build sophisticated structures in this region, many of them could now lie hidden beneath the waves, waiting for brave explorers to rediscover them. The debate surrounding Yonaguni also reveals how underwater archaeology is pushing the boundaries of what we consider possible in ancient times. Each new discovery forces us to reconsider the capabilities of our ancestors and the timeline of human technological development. Whether natural or artificial, the Yonaguni Monument stands as a testament to the mysteries still waiting to be solved beneath our oceans. The forces that claimed these ancient cities reveal patterns that have shaped human civilization throughout history. Understanding how these communities met their underwater fate provides crucial insights into the relationship between human settlement and the ever-changing forces of nature. The most common cause of ancient city submersion is a geological process called subsidence, where the Earth's crust gradually sinks due to continuous seismic or volcanic activity over extended periods. Subsidence allows rising seas to advance inland slowly but relentlessly, eventually overwhelming any structures in their path. Unlike the dramatic destruction caused by earthquakes or tsunamis, subsidence often gives populations time to evacuate, but it makes returning impossible as the land itself disappears beneath the waves. Many ancient cities experienced this gradual drowning, their streets and buildings becoming progressively more waterlogged until the sea claimed them entirely. However, some underwater cities met far more violent ends. Seismic activity can trigger liquefaction, a phenomenon where solid ground temporarily behaves like liquid due to the intense shaking of earthquakes. When liquefaction occurs in coastal areas, entire city districts can sink rapidly into the softened earth, disappearing beneath the surface in a matter of hours or even minutes. The speed of this process often leaves behind perfectly preserved archaeological sites, as residents have no time to salvage valuable items or dismantle structures. Tsunamis represent another catastrophic force capable of drowning coastal civilizations. These massive waves generated by underwater earthquakes or volcanic eruptions can travel across entire ocean basins at jet aircraft speeds before crashing into unsuspecting shorelines with devastating force. Historical records and geological evidence suggest that several ancient Mediterranean and Pacific civilizations were wiped out by tsunami events that left their ruins scattered across the seafloor. Long-term climate changes have also played a crucial role in creating underwater archaeological sites. The end of the last ice age brought dramatic sea level changes as massive ice sheets melted and returned their water to the oceans. Over several thousand years, global sea levels rose by more than 100 meters, gradually submerging vast areas of coastal land where humans had established some of their earliest permanent settlements. Many of the underwater ruins we discover today were claimed by these ancient climate changes, preserved beneath sediment layers for thousands of years. The combination of these forces means that underwater archaeological sites often contain unique preservation conditions not found on terrestrial excavations. The anaerobic environment of marine sediments protects organic materials from decay, while the constant temperature and protection from weathering preserve artifacts in remarkable detail. Wooden structures, textiles, food remains, and even human bodies can survive underwater for millennia in conditions that would destroy them completely on land. This preservation advantage has revolutionized our understanding of ancient daily life. Underwater excavations recover ordinary household items, tools, and personal belongings that rarely survive in terrestrial archaeological contexts. These everyday artifacts provide intimate glimpses into how ancient peoples lived, worked, and interacted with their environment. The mundane objects pulled from underwater ruins often prove more valuable to historians than the monumental architecture that initially attracts attention to these sites. The technological revolution in underwater archaeology has transformed our ability to locate and study submerged civilizations. Modern marine archaeology employs an impressive arsenal of sophisticated equipment that would have seemed like science fiction just decades ago. Side-scan sonar systems create detailed images of the seafloor, revealing buried structures and artificial formations hidden beneath layers of sediment. Multi-beam bathymetry generates precise three-dimensional maps of underwater terrain, allowing archaeologists to identify potential archaeological sites before sending divers to investigate. Magnetometers detect metallic objects and can locate iron anchors, bronze artifacts, or other metal items from great distances. Sub-bottom profilers use sound waves to penetrate seafloor sediments and reveal buried structures, giving archaeologists X-ray vision into the layers of history hidden beneath the ocean floor. These non-invasive technologies allow researchers to survey vast areas quickly and identify the most promising locations for detailed excavation. Remotely operated vehicles have revolutionized deep-water archaeology by allowing researchers to explore sites far beyond the reach of human divers. These sophisticated robots, controlled from surface vessels, can work at crushing depths for extended periods while transmitting high-definition video and collecting samples. ROVs equipped with robotic arms can perform delicate excavation tasks and recover fragile artifacts without risking human lives in dangerous underwater environments. Satellite positioning systems now allow underwater archaeologists to map sites with incredible precision, creating detailed records that can be shared with researchers worldwide. Digital photography and 3D modeling techniques document artifacts and structures in ways that preserve exact spatial relationships and allow for virtual reconstruction of entire underwater cities. These technological advances have transformed underwater archaeology from a dangerous adventure into a precise scientific discipline. The integration of these technologies has also accelerated the pace of discovery. Archaeological teams can now survey more sea floor in a single season than previous generations of researchers could investigate in entire careers. Computer modeling and data analysis help identify patterns and relationships that might take years to recognize through traditional excavation methods. The result is an explosion of new discoveries that is rewriting our understanding of ancient civilizations and their relationship with the sea. Yet, technology alone cannot solve all the challenges facing underwater archaeology. The marine environment presents unique obstacles that even the most advanced equipment cannot entirely overcome. Strong currents, limited visibility, and the physical demands of working underwater restrict the amount of time archaeologists can spend on excavation sites. The cost of mounting underwater expeditions far exceeds that of terrestrial archaeology, limiting the number of projects that can be funded and the extent of investigation possible at each site. Despite these challenges, the rewards of underwater archaeology continue to justify the extraordinary effort required. Each new discovery adds crucial pieces to the puzzle of human history, revealing civilizations that have been lost for thousands of years. The perfectly preserved artifacts and structures recovered from underwater sites provide unparalleled insights into ancient technologies, artistic traditions, and ways of life that would otherwise remain completely unknown. The connection between ancient underwater cities and contemporary climate concerns provides a sobering perspective on coastal vulnerability and sea level change. As modern researchers study how ancient civilizations were claimed by rising waters, they cannot help but draw parallels to the challenges facing coastal communities today. Current climate change projections suggest that many major cities could experience fates similar to their ancient counterparts, as rising sea levels and extreme weather events threaten low-lying coastal areas worldwide. Cities like Miami, New Orleans, Venice, and Bangkok face increasing risks from sea level rise, while small island nations confront the possibility of complete submersion within decades. The archaeological record demonstrates that such dramatic changes are not unprecedented in human history, but the scale and speed of contemporary climate change may exceed anything our species has previously experienced. The lessons learned from studying ancient underwater cities could prove invaluable for understanding how coastal civilizations adapt to, or succumb to, the relentless advance of rising seas. The study of these submerged civilizations reveals a pattern that extends far beyond individual archaeological sites. Across every continent, beneath lakes, rivers, and oceans, researchers are discovering evidence that coastal settlement has been a fundamental characteristic of human civilization since our earliest days. What this means is both profound and unsettling. The very locations that have always attracted human communities, fertile river deltas, protected harbors, and resource-rich coastlines are precisely the areas most vulnerable to the forces that create underwater ruins. This pattern suggests that the phenomenon of lost cities isn't some rare historical anomaly, but rather a recurring cycle that has shaped human development for thousands of years. Communities thrive near water sources They grow into sophisticated urban centers, and then geological or climatic forces reclaim them. The survivors move to new locations and rebuild, often carrying with them only fragments of their former civilization's knowledge and achievements. Consider the implications of this cycle for our understanding of human progress. How many times has our species developed advanced technologies, sophisticated art forms, or complex social systems, only to lose them when entire cities disappeared beneath the waves? The underwater ruins we've discovered might represent just the visible tips of a much larger iceberg of lost human knowledge and achievement. Recent discoveries have begun to challenge even the most basic assumptions about ancient maritime capabilities. In the waters off Thonis Heracleion, archaeologists have recovered a complete ancient Egyptian boat known as a barus. The design of this vessel matches exactly with descriptions written by the Greek historian Herodotus in 450 BC, proving that ancient texts can provide accurate technical information about shipbuilding techniques that were lost for over 2 millennia. But the barus discovery raises even more intriguing questions. If the Egyptians were building sophisticated river and coastal vessels capable of handling the challenging waters of the Mediterranean, what other maritime technologies might they have possessed? The level of precision in the boat's construction suggests knowledge of advanced woodworking techniques, understanding of hydrodynamics, and probably navigation methods that we're only beginning to appreciate. This maritime expertise becomes even more significant when we consider the trade networks that connected ancient underwater cities. Artifacts recovered from Thonis Heracleion include luxury ceramics from Greece, indicating that this Egyptian port was part of a complex international trade system. Similarly, the anchor designs found at underwater Dwarka show influences from multiple maritime traditions, suggesting that ancient Indian Ocean trade routes were far more sophisticated than previously believed. The preservation conditions in underwater sites have also revealed startling details about ancient daily life that would be impossible to recover from terrestrial excavations. At Atlit Yam, archaeologists found evidence that the inhabitants were suffering from diseases caused by air pollution, specifically from indoor fires used for cooking and heating. This 9,000-year-old evidence of environmental health impacts shows that even our earliest settled ancestors were grappling with the unintended consequences of urban living. More remarkably, the site has yielded evidence of surgical procedures performed on human skulls, indicating that Neolithic peoples possessed medical knowledge sophisticated enough to attempt complex operations. The precision of these ancient surgical techniques, preserved in skeletal remains, suggests that medical knowledge was far more advanced in prehistoric times than mainstream archaeology has traditionally accepted. These medical discoveries take on additional significance when we consider the ear damage found in many Atlit Yam skeletons. The pattern of bone growth in the ear canals indicates that these people spent considerable time diving in cold water. But this wasn't just casual swimming. The extent of the damage suggests professional-level diving activities, possibly for harvesting underwater resources or recovering materials from deeper waters. This evidence points to something extraordinary. 9,000 years ago, humans were not just living near the sea. They were actively exploiting underwater resources in ways that required considerable skill and probably specialized equipment. What this means is that our ancestors developed sophisticated underwater technologies thousands of years before we previously thought such capabilities existed. The implications extend beyond individual archaeological sites to broader questions about human adaptation and technological development. If Neolithic peoples were capable of complex diving operations, advanced surgery, and sophisticated boat building, what other capabilities might they have possessed that we haven't yet discovered? The underwater archaeological record suggests that human technological development has been far from linear, with advanced capabilities appearing much earlier than conventional history suggests. The controversy surrounding the Yonaguni Monument exemplifies the challenges facing underwater archaeology as it pushes against the boundaries of accepted historical timelines. The debate between natural formation and human construction reflects deeper questions about how we define archaeological evidence and what standards of proof should apply to underwater discoveries. Proponents of the artificial origin theory point to specific features that seem difficult to explain through natural processes alone. The monument contains what appear to be carved steps, right-angled corners, and channels that follow precise geometric patterns. Some researchers have identified features that resemble ceremonial platforms, drainage systems, and even representations of animals carved into the stone surfaces. Critics counter that the human mind tends to see patterns and intentional design even in natural formations, a psychological phenomenon known as pareidolia. They argue that the same processes that create the step-like rock formations visible on Yonaguni Island above water could easily account for the underwater structure's geometric appearance. Yet this debate misses a crucial point that both sides acknowledge. Even if the Yonaguni Monument is entirely natural, there is clear evidence that ancient humans modified and utilized natural rock formations throughout the Yonaguni region. The island contains numerous examples of artificial caves, carved tombs, and modified stone structures that demonstrate sophisticated stoneworking capabilities among prehistoric inhabitants. This pattern of human modification of natural geological features appears throughout the underwater archaeological record. At many submerged sites, archaeologists find combinations of natural formations that have been enhanced, modified, or incorporated into human-built structures. The line between natural and artificial becomes blurred when dealing with ancient peoples who worked with their environment rather than completely reshaping it. The Yonaguni controversy also highlights the rapid pace at which underwater archaeological sites are being discovered and the need for new methodological approaches to study them. Traditional archaeological techniques developed for terrestrial sites often prove inadequate for the unique challenges posed by underwater environments. The field requires new standards for documentation, new approaches to dating submerged structures, and new ways of interpreting evidence that has been subjected to thousands of years of marine processes. Advanced imaging technologies are beginning to reveal details at underwater sites that were invisible to earlier generations of researchers. High-resolution sonar can detect subtle modifications to natural rock formations that indicate human activity. Laser scanning techniques create precise three-dimensional models that preserve exact measurements and spatial relationships. Computer analysis can identify patterns in stone placement or modification that might indicate intentional human design. These technological advances are accelerating discoveries at an unprecedented rate. Archaeological teams are identifying potential underwater sites faster than they can be properly investigated. Satellite imagery reveals anomalous features on seafloors around the world that could represent everything from ancient harbors to submerged ceremonial centers. The challenge now is developing the resources and methodologies needed to properly investigate this explosion of potential discoveries. The economic implications of underwater archaeology are also becoming increasingly significant. The tourism value of underwater archaeological sites can provide substantial economic benefits to local communities while funding ongoing research. Sites like Thonis Heracleion and underwater Dwarka attract thousands of diving enthusiasts and researchers each year, generating revenue that supports both archaeological work and local economies. However, this economic potential also creates new challenges for site preservation and management. Increased diving activity can damage fragile underwater structures and disturb sediment layers that protect artifacts. The balance between public access and archaeological preservation requires careful management and often expensive infrastructure development. The training requirements for underwater archaeologists represent another significant challenge facing the field. Researchers must be skilled not only in traditional archaeological methods, but also in technical diving, underwater photography, marine biology, and the operation of sophisticated scientific equipment. This combination of skills is rare and expensive to develop, limiting the number of qualified professionals available for underwater archaeological projects. Despite these challenges, the field of underwater archaeology continues to expand rapidly, driven by technological advances and the recognition that submerged sites may contain some of our most important clues about human history. Each new discovery adds weight to the argument that conventional archaeological focus on terrestrial sites has left enormous gaps in our understanding of ancient civilizations. The pattern emerging from underwater archaeological discoveries suggests that our ancestors were far more sophisticated in their relationship with marine environments than previously believed. They weren't just living near the water, they were actively using underwater resources, developing maritime technologies, and creating coastal urban centers that rivaled anything built inland. This sophisticated relationship with marine environments may explain why so many ancient myths and legends contain detailed descriptions of underwater realms, sea voyages, and civilizations that disappeared beneath the waves, rather than pure fantasy. These stories might preserve cultural memories of real historical events and real technological capabilities that were lost when entire coastal communities vanished beneath rising seas. The global nature of these discoveries is perhaps most significant of all. Underwater ruins have been found in the Mediterranean, the Atlantic, the Pacific, the Indian Ocean, and in inland lakes and rivers on every continent. This worldwide distribution suggests that the development of sophisticated coastal civilizations was not limited to a few advanced cultures, but was instead a fundamental characteristic of human settlement patterns throughout our species' history. What we're discovering beneath the waves isn't just a collection of individual archaeological sites. We're uncovering evidence of a global maritime civilization that existed thousands of years before the conventional historical timeline suggests such capabilities were possible. Each new discovery forces us to push back the dates for advanced human technologies and to recognize that our ancestors' achievements were far greater than we ever imagined. The implications of these discoveries extend far beyond academic archaeology. They suggest that human civilization has been far more resilient, adaptable, and sophisticated than we previously understood. Our ancestors survived ice ages, climate changes, geological catastrophes, and sea level fluctuations that would challenge even modern societies. They rebuilt after disasters, developed new technologies, and created urban centers that supported complex trade networks and cultural exchanges across vast distances. As we face our own challenges from climate change and rising sea levels, the archaeological record of underwater civilizations provides both warnings and hope. It warns us that even the most advanced societies can be overwhelmed by natural forces beyond their control. But it also demonstrates that human ingenuity and adaptability have allowed our species to survive and rebuild after even the most catastrophic losses. The story of underwater ruins is ultimately the story of human resilience in the face of an ever-changing planet. These submerged cities represent not just loss, but also the eternal human capacity to create, to build, and to begin again. Every artifact pulled from the ocean floor connects us to ancestors who faced challenges as daunting as our own and found ways to preserve their knowledge, their culture, and their hope for future generations. The future of underwater archaeology promises revelations that could fundamentally transform our understanding of human civilization. Right now, as you're watching this video, research teams are using cutting-edge technology to survey seafloors that have never been systematically explored. Advanced sonar systems are mapping underwater landscapes with precision that would have been impossible just a decade ago, revealing geometric anomalies and artificial structures hidden beneath centuries of sediment. What makes this moment in history so extraordinary is the convergence of technological capability and urgent necessity. Climate change is altering ocean chemistry and sea levels in ways that could either preserve or destroy underwater archaeological sites forever. Some submerged ruins are becoming more accessible as changing currents shift sediment layers, while others face destruction from ocean acidification and increased storm activity. The race is on to document and understand these sites before they're lost to the very forces that preserved them for thousands of years. The University of Bradford's Submerged Landscapes Research Center is leading one of the most ambitious underwater archaeological projects ever attempted. Their Subnautica collaboration aims to explore Doggerland, a massive landmass that connected Britain to continental Europe until rising seas claimed it 8,000 years ago. This isn't just another archaeological site, it's an entire lost continent that supported human populations for millennia before disappearing beneath the North Sea. Imagine an area larger than modern-day England, covered with rivers, forests, and human settlements, all now lying beneath one of the world's busiest shipping lanes. Preliminary surveys have already identified what appear to be ancient river valleys, possible settlement sites, and geological features that could have supported substantial human populations. If the research team's hypotheses prove correct, Doggerland could contain archaeological evidence that rewrites the entire story of how humans spread across Europe. The technological arsenal being deployed for these investigations reads like science fiction. Autonomous underwater vehicles patrol the seafloor for months at a time, collecting data and images without human intervention. Artificial intelligence algorithms analyze thousands of sonar images, identifying patterns that might indicate human activity. Three-dimensional holographic mapping creates virtual reconstructions of underwater landscapes, allowing researchers to walk through ancient environments that haven't seen sunlight for thousands of years. But perhaps the most exciting development is the integration of genetic archaeology with underwater site investigation. DNA analysis of sediment cores extracted from submerged archaeological sites can reveal what plants and animals lived in these areas when they were above sea level. This biological evidence provides crucial context for understanding how ancient peoples interacted with their environment and what resources were available to support large populations. The preservation potential of underwater sites continues to astonish researchers with each new discovery. At Thonis Herakleion, archaeologists recently uncovered a cache of gold jewelry that appears to have been buried in a ceremonial offering just before the city's destruction. The pieces show no signs of corrosion or damage, their intricate details as sharp as the day they were crafted over 2,000 years ago. These finds demonstrate that underwater environments can preserve organic and metallic materials with a fidelity that surpasses even the most carefully controlled museum conditions. Recent advances in underwater excavation techniques are revolutionizing how archaeologists approach submerged sites. Precision water dredging systems can remove sediment layers with surgical accuracy, exposing artifacts without disturbing their spatial relationships. Underwater 3D printing allows researchers to create protective casings around fragile structures before attempting to move them. Even more remarkably, some teams are experimenting with in situ conservation techniques that preserve artifacts in their underwater environment rather than removing them to the surface. The collaborative nature of modern underwater archaeology is breaking down traditional academic boundaries. Marine biologists work alongside historians to understand how changing ocean conditions affected ancient settlements. Geologists contribute expertise about seafloor formation and sediment analysis. Computer scientists develop algorithms for processing vast amounts of sonar and photographic data. This interdisciplinary approach is yielding insights that no single field of study could achieve alone. One of the most intriguing patterns emerging from recent discoveries is the apparent sophistication of ancient harbor engineering. At multiple underwater sites, archaeologists have found evidence of complex breakwater systems, artificial deepening of natural harbors, and even what appear to be ancient dry dock facilities. These engineering works required not just advanced stone cutting and construction techniques, but also sophisticated understanding of tidal patterns, wave action, and sediment flow. The ocean floor holds more secrets than we've ever imagined, and we've only scratched the surface of what's waiting down there. Every year, new technology reveals more lost cities, more impossible artifacts, and more evidence that our ancestors were far more sophisticated than we ever gave them credit for. These underwater ruins aren't just archaeological curiosities. They're proof that human civilization is both more fragile and more resilient than we thought. The same forces that claimed these ancient cities are still at work today, and the lessons written in stone beneath the waves might be exactly what we need to face our own uncertain future. The greatest museum in human history isn't in any building, it's spread across our ocean floors, waiting for the next generation of explorers to dive down and bring these incredible stories back to the surface.